Good evening, folks, and welcome to Mansfield Town News and Views. Tonight's episode, I'm joined with fellow ex-Stag, Les Robinson, to talk about his time at Mansfield as well as his footballing career. First off, Les, thanks for taking your time out of your evening to take part. How are you doing?
I'm champion, thanks, matey. Yeah, no problem at all. Look forward to it.
Brilliant stuff. So I just want to start at the beginning, really, to be honest, because obviously born in Shirebrook, so local lad and that. So talk us about what it was like growing up for you in Shirebrook at that time in terms of football.
Well, I think anybody that knows Shirebrook knows that, ex-mining village. Dad, brothers were miners, and do you know what I mean? Lived in a mining community, mining house, a miner's house, I should say. Not a lot of money. Dad worked hard, 7 days a week down pit, had the odd day off. Do you know what I mean? And it was funny, a bloke called Jim Betts started started a football team in Shirebrook, and that's how it started for me. I think he did it. He had two teams, one for each of his sons, with different age groups, and that's how I got into football. Used to play up model. I think it's just cricket ground now.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where it started. I started playing for sort of representative sides, and then people start coming and taking players and joining teams and that. Do you know what I mean? But I had a good couple of years at Shirebrook before I sort of moved on a bit.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. So growing up then, who was your greatest influence growing up as a young kid getting into football?
Uh, it's got to be my dad. Do you know what I mean? It's one of them. I've seen the hard work he put in, day in day out to look after his family, and it was that sort of gave me a good grounding. You know what I mean, mate? So all my life, I just work hard, whatever I do. Give everything 100%, and hope it's good enough.
I think a lot of players do say that past and present, hard work pays off. So essentially that's what really gets you far then in just like in life in general, you just put the hard work in and,
Exactly, mate. And I still use them principles now at school with kids. If they want to get their exam results, they've got to work hard.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Absolutely, which we'll get to later on. Because obviously, I believe you're working at school now, don't you, yourself now?
I do, mate. Yes.
Brilliant. We'll get to that later on.
Yeah, no worries, mate.
Yeah, obviously, talking about your football career, obviously, you started out at Chesterfield youth team, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I did a year at Chesterfield. It was the year the YTS first came out, and I signed with Chesterfield, and Billy Dearden signed me. But before we'd even started, Billy Dearden had then moved to Mansfield, and so obviously that's how I knew Billy. So yeah, I did a year at Chesterfield. There were 12 of us started because the government were paying the wages. I think it was something like £27 a week.
Wow.
Because government were paying wages,
Yeah.
instead of just having a couple of apprentices, the clubs went out and got 9 or 10. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was funny because you did one day at college, and we did it at even though I was at Chesterfield, we still used the college at Mansfield up top at Hill.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was my start. Did all right actually. Again, just worked hard. Got used to training every day and what have you. I played, and it was brilliant in them days, mate. Because even as a kid, I mean, I was only 16, going on 17, and if you were playing in reserves, which I was, I mean,
Yeah.
even first pre-season, I was playing against people at West Bromwich who were then the Premiership teams. Do you know what I mean? Uh,
Yeah.
and it was a fantastic start to a footballing career. As I say, pre-season we played 2 or 3 Premiership teams, and it was just and at that age it was like I was awestruck, but at the same time it gave you even more reason to work hard. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's how it all started. But then as the season went by, they started sort of getting rid of a few of the lads, knowing that they weren't going to be good enough. By end of the season, there was 3 of us left. Offered us all non-contract terms,
Right.
which obviously meant I weren't going to get paid for it year after. So it was one of them where I just
Yeah.
thought, well, you've seen me for a year, you've seen enough. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Of course.
So I wrote to half a dozen clubs, and Billy at Mansfield invited me in for a training for a match. and I played well, and then from that they invited me up to the pre-season following year. So that's hence how I ended up at Mansfield.
Brilliant stuff, and it must have been easy for you as well, the travel wise as well, just up the road, so it really worked out well for you then coming to
It
Mansfield.
did, mate. It was one of them though, where obviously at that age I was catching buses anyway, so Stags were giving me £7 a week expenses.
Oh, brilliant!
And it was funny because some of the times Billy would have to pick me up, depending on kick-off times, all that sort of thing. So either Billy had come from Chesterfield or Gary Pollard, and they'd drive to Shirebrook, pick me up, and then drive into club. Yeah, and again, it was just nice. Do you know what I mean? For them to do that sort of thing for a 17-year-old kid was really great. And I'm grateful to both Billy and Polly, for giving me that opportunity by, going out of the way to sort of give us a lift now and again. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and obviously at that point, you're still a young lad. You're still obviously learning your trade in football. So obviously back then, football for young players was a lot different, wasn't it? Being an apprentice, having to clean boots and stuff like that. How did you find that side of football?
I've got to be honest with you, that was fine because it was part of grounding. You knew what was coming. You knew what you had to do. At Chesterfield, obviously, I did more at Chesterfield than Mansfield because Mansfield weren't paying me. So, do you know what I mean? They had the ones that they were paying. They had them jobs, not me. But I was still part of it. And as a youth team at Mansfield, we had a fantastic team at that time. And I mean, that led to me getting a contract, really, mate, because we got through to semi-finals at FA Youth Cup, which, for a club of Mansfield's, esteem, it was one of them that it don't really happen. You know what I mean? We lost to Watford, who were a Premiership team. They went on to play Newcastle in final, I think. But we knocked Aston Villa out, we knocked Sheffield United out. I remember going to Bramall Lane and beating them at their own, on their own turf, and it was just a great experience. Again, as a young kid, a great grounding, really.
Oh, absolutely. And obviously, you spoke about Billy. Obviously, brought you to the club. You know him quite well. What did you make of Mansfield when you first came? Then, what did you make of the club in general when you first joined?
Are we talking when I was a kid, or?
Oh yeah, as a kid, when you first joined.
I started my career there in a way, and then finished it there as well. But as a kid, it was brilliant. The setup. I loved Field Mill itself. I know it was an old stand and what have you, but it was still a great place to play football. And having training pitch back at stand, not many clubs had that at that time. They were travelling all over country, all over district. But it was brilliant. And of course, Ian Greaves. I loved Ian Greaves. He was my type of man, my type of manager. Do you know what I mean? No messing about. Say it as it is. You know what I mean? If you shit, tell me I'm shit. Do you know what I mean? And I respected him for that, and he had a great rapport with players, and, the players knew how far they could go. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So, obviously you've spoken there about Ian Greaves then. So it was someone that you really enjoyed playing under and stuff. And, what was it like for you as a player then at that time?
It was brilliant, but because I was a kid, I wanted to play every week. Do you know what I mean? I mean, the only reason I got a game in my first year there, because I was still on £7 a week expenses when I made my debut. And it was that. If it wasn't for FA Youth Cup, I wouldn't have been at Mansfield Town at that time, because John Jarman had Billy had gone up into assistant manager, and John Jarman had got demoted down to youth team / reserve team. And because Billy took me there, he weren't playing me. So I was actually going out. And playing Sunday League football with Shirebrook. To be honest with you, mate, I didn't tell anybody, but that's what I was doing. But because we had such a good run, I was still at Mansfield playing. In as I say, in the youth team and that. But got a call. Billy come up. Ian come and watched us 2 or 3 times as we progressed, and it was after we'd been at Watford that he sort of called me up for to the first team, which was a bit of a shock at the time, but chuffed to bits. Do you know what I mean? And he had to give me a contract then, so I was all right. Signed both careers. Yeah, so rest is history, really, mate. My only thing was I sort of played 8 games, and he'd like put me in, take me out, put me in, take me. Do you know what I mean? And even as a kid, all I've ever wanted to do is play football. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And it was one of those where he's pulled me. I've only played 8 games, I think, and he's pulled me, and he said, "Look," he says, "Stockport's coming for you. They want to take you on loan."
yeah,
He said, "I'd like you to go and get some experience. You know, you'll play every week. Do you know what I mean?" So I
yeah,
did. I went out on a month's loan, played every game, stayed for another month again, played every game. And you could only do 3 months, so I did a third month, played every game, loved every minute of it. And funnily enough, Stockport were well adrift at bottom of 4th division and would have gone out at league.
yeah,
But we managed, you know, we got together and we worked hard and we were training morning, noon, and evening. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
And we ended up sort of 2 or 3 places above it, I think, by the end of that season. But in meantime, they'd off. I think it was 10 grand they paid for me because I didn't want to go back purely because I wanted first team football,
of course,
and
yeah,
Ian Greaves couldn't promise me that. You know what I mean? But to be fair, I, I got a promotion medal from my first season there, and the
yeah,
second season obviously was when Mansfield ended up at Wembley. So I was a bit gutted about that, but I probably wouldn't have played anyway. So do you know what I mean? I was chuffed to bits for the club, a bit jealous, but at the same time wanted them to win, obviously, and you know because they were my old teammates.
yeah. I mean, that was another thing you mentioned there about obviously frustrating for any player not playing, and any player would wants to play football.
Of course they do.
You
Yeah.
know, but it must have been amazing being around them players at the time. Obviously, going on to have that success at Wembley, and that must have been an amazing experience. Because even to this day, they're still the Mansfield greats.
Yeah, they still talk about it, and there's a WhatsApp group, funnily enough, and you know, I still speak to them, and it's yeah. I mean, it was if it weren't for Ian Greaves, I wouldn't have had a career. Do you know what I mean? So you know, and if it weren't for those players, you know, that I played with, you know, perhaps, you know, again, wouldn't have had a career because there's a lot of luck involved as well as ability, and you
Yeah.
know, whatever else it takes.
So, was a defender the always position that you always wanted to be, or did you have to change position, or was that always the position that you?
Um, at Mansfield as a kid, I was a midfield player, up at, you know, box to box, never stopped running, worked
Yeah,
my socks off. Didn't have the greatest of touches at that point. That was probably what let me down a little bit. Didn't score enough goals, even though you know I was setting plenty up. You know the running about and doing. But of course, that all comes the more experience you get. Do you know what I mean?
of
You
course, yeah,
become more comfortable on ball, and you know you improve as a player. But I've never, you know, the attitude was what got me on initially, and you know, I've never lost that.
yeah, absolutely. And obviously, the first spell, obviously Mansfield, you obviously went to move on, and that. So, how did that came about for you to depart Mansfield the first time? Then, just a case of just being told that you're not going to get much first team
Well,
foot.
yeah, it was a long spell really. It messed me up because there's no way I wanted to leave my hometown club. But
Yeah,
then, you know, when you're not playing, it's like frustrating. So
of course.
when I went out on loan and played 3 months of first team football, and do you know what I mean? Played here, there, and everywhere, you know, all over the country, and it was just it's what I wanted, and that
Yeah,
meant that I've got to leave the Stags. So you know, I went and played every game while I was at Stockport. I was there for about 18 months before I signed for Doncaster Rovers for 20 grand, I think that was. And that was purely to get a bit closer to home, you know, because I was travelling every day up to Stockport and had a fantastic time there. And, you know, played 90 odd games in 18 months, you know what I mean?
yeah,
18, 20 months. So, again, a great grounding for me. You know, played a couple of good managers. Asa Hartford came in and me and him played centre mid in the
yeah,
second year I was at Stockport. And then I sort of rushed into a move to Doncaster, but at the same time, I'm glad I did. I got to play, you know, with good players again.
yeah,
A couple of good managers, Joe Kinnear, and yeah. So it was one of them where I went I perhaps should have waited and listened to a few offers, but I just wanted to get closer to home, and that's what I did. Do you know what I mean? But
Yeah,
again, it was still great. Went to Doncaster a couple of years at Donny. Again, played every game that I was fit for. I played, and
yeah,
yeah, it just I become a better player,
yeah.
and it put me in the shop window, for the bigger and better things.
Yeah, and another club as well that a lot of fans, Oxford fans, obviously rate you highly. You know, you had a really good spell there, and that. Just talk us through that because obviously you had your testimonial there, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So that must have been.
Yeah, obviously at Donny, Billy Bremner came in after Joe Kinnear, and that's when he turned me into a right back. He put me in at right back, and I never looked back. I sort of played 3 or 4 months there, played 16 games, I think it was, 20 games,
Yeah,
whatever, and that's when things started to look up, as in, being looked at by bigger and better clubs. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
And Oxford came in, offered 200 grand. It was Mark Lawrenson, ex-Liverpool player. He was
yeah,
manager of Peterborough, and Peterborough came in and couldn't afford me. So his connection was that he was at Oxford before that with um, Brian Horton, and hence Brian Horton come and watched us, and that connection was what got me to Oxford. So I come down here to Oxford. 200 grand, I think it was 150 grand and 50 after so many appearances. But I also had Wolves. Wolves came in at the same time, and it was just one of those where Brian Horton sold club to me. Obviously, I'd not been down this way living wise. Do you know what I mean? And
yeah,
if Billy Bremner says it's worth going down just to buy an house, sell it, when you come back, you'll make a fortune. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
And he's probably right, to be fair. It didn't quite work out that way. So yeah, I came down, spoke to Brian Horton, signed straight away. But I was injured at the time. But he wanted to sign me ready for next year. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah,
that weren't an issue. And I made my debut at last game of season against Port Vale. And then sort of never looked back, really, mate. Sort of 10 years. I think we had about seven different managers. They all fancied me as a player. Do you know what I mean? I had 7 years in first division. 3 years, obviously, in second. Had a couple of promotions. Good cup runs. Played against everybody except Man United and Liverpool.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, great 10 years. Averaged 46 games a year for 10 years. Played 458 games. Um, it couldn't have gone better, really, mate. I mean, I
yeah,
had one injury, bad injury. I was out for about 8 months, but apart from that, it was an odd game here and there. And I think in them 10 years, I had 5 seasons where I played every single game. Do you know what I mean? So I
yeah.
was fortunate in them respects. But that's by looking after your body and looking after yourself as well, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, not just that, but most players don't last 2 seasons nowadays. It's like, so that in itself's a rare thing in football nowadays, loyalty, in my opinion, because you don't often see.
Yeah, and it's true, isn't it? And again, they're never going to last 10 years anymore, are they?
No.
Yeah, you know what I mean. And again, now it's one of those where they sort of playing, resting players and all this. I don't get it at all. I couldn't have coped.
No.
Yeah, you're not playing this week. We're resting you. I mean, what's all that about? But I'm not saying it's right or wrong.
Yeah.
But I know for me, I couldn't have coped with that. Yeah, ended up 742 first team games I played. So, for somebody from Shirebrook to go and do that, and to achieve what I've achieved is, it's brilliant, mate.
It is. And when I said to people that I'm going to interview you, everyone's like commenting, Charlotte Brooks' finest, like, there's absolutely this. It's
Yeah, I'd
brilliant.
like to think so.
um,
Um,
so, I mean,
always proud of my roots, mate.
yeah, absolutely. Which is funny because
Always, always.
I actually got raised just down the road from Warsaw, so I'm literally
Oh,
like,
okay, mate. Yeah,
yeah,
never
so,
mind.
yeah. It's great, like, but yeah, it's great stuff, and it always means a lot to local players as well because you know exactly what it means to play. Obviously as a
Yeah,
fan, play for the club, and it's everyone's dream, isn't it?
of
Growing
course
up.
it is, mate. that's what you did when you kicked a ball around when you were 6 and 7, 8 year old. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was one of those. I want to play for Mansfield. That's what I wanted to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Got a couple of questions here for you, Les. One of them's from Danny. How do you feel about the current Mansfield squad? In terms of promotion, do you think they can do it, or what's your thoughts?
Well, when you look how far it's come this season, you'd like to hope it can continue, but it's a strange one, isn't it, when you get to playoffs because form and everything else sort of goes out window a little bit, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean? Because it's for it's 3 games. You've got the home and away leg against Northampton, and then it's like
Lottery, yeah.
it's totally different to what you're doing week in, week out, But he's got a good squad together, had some great results. It's a shame that the winning run sort of ended just before this. Do you know what I mean? 'Cause if he could have carried on and he'd carry on through, it would have been fantastic, wouldn't it? But
Yeah.
I've got every confidence. Great managers, some good players, some good loan signing lad from Newcastle, and do you know what I mean? Fingers crossed, mate. I'm hoping.
Yeah, that's all we can do. And well, like I said to you the other day, though, on the messenger, it's like we have to do things at Mansfield Town way. We've not changed a bit in that respect. We're still the same team. That's just things a hard way every time.
It's funny because I think we went up when I was a kid, and I said we got promoted. We went up as third in that. Then we were third. I think Northampton won league then, and then funnily enough, Northampton won it. And then I'm sure when was it 20 years ago when we went up?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So, and I think we finished third then as well, didn't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Just getting onto that briefly. Obviously, you came back to Mansfield in your second spell.
Yes.
How did that one come about? Then same again. Then Billy just got in touch. Then all.
Yeah, it was one of those. I'm a principals man, and Burnley had come in for me when they'd got money, and they signed Gaza, they signed Ian Wright, and they came in for me. And I'd been at Oxford 9 years then, and it was one of those where family was settled, at schools and what have you with kids, and it's like, do I want to go to Burnley? So I spoke to the manager, who was Mickey Lewis at the time, and he said, "Look, we want you to stay. Go and see chairman. We'll sort your new contract out, and I'm happy for you to stay." So I went in, spoke to the chairman. We shook hands on a new 2-year deal. And at the time, my lad had got stomach pains and he was in and out of hospital. So I didn't rush in and sign anything. And in the meantime, we lost 3 or 4 games out at next 5. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I've gone in to sign, and secretary says, "Oh, you need to see chairman again." So I went to see chairman. He said, "Look, lads," he said, if we get relegated, he said, "I can't afford, for you to sign up, give you that 2-year contract." So I don't worry about it. We'll stay up. I'll sign it at end of season type thing. Do you know what I mean? When we've stayed up, and we did. We stayed up, and then they come in. Manager said, chairman didn't talk to me then. He wouldn't talk to me then. So I spoke to manager, and Denny Smith he was, and who'd been my manager before at Oxford, but then he moved on to West Brom and come back. And he said, "Look, lads," he says, "chairman's only offering you a year." And it was on something like 500 quid a week, less money all in all, with appearances and everything else.
Yeah.
And he says, "But, you'll get a testimonial on that." And I'm like, I'm a principals man, so I told him where to shove it. and that's me, and you know what I mean? Because it's not money and everything. It's not everything, mate. So, funnily enough, it was like that. And it was the first time that my contract was ever going to come to an end, because I'd always re-signed, a year before. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was one of those. Having been there 9 years, it was a bit of a. It was quite scary. Do you know what I mean? And then my name obviously gets circulated then, and I had a couple of clubs come in, and then Billy rang me, says, "Why don't you come back here?" Says, "We've got some great kids. Come and look after the kids for me. You'll be captain, hometown club, all that." Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't take any convincing, to be fair. Do you know what I mean? My aim was always to come back that way to live anyway.
Yeah,
So I went and spoke to him, spoke to the chairman, and I know people sort of have had grievances against him at the time and since, but he was great when I went and spoke to him, and he was good with Billy at that point. I don't know, I don't know ins and outs and everything else, but anyway,
yeah,
um, I the only two clubs I did speak to were Lincoln because Stanty were there, and Mansfield because Bill were there, and
yeah,
I was always going to Mansfield anyway. But yeah, so I spoke to Billy. He told me about all the young lads that were coming through, and he needed somebody, an older head, to sort of look after them and make sure they went down the right way. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
And um, so I came in. I signed a couple of years, and again, I signed a couple of years, but the money I was going to earn in that 2 years was near enough the same that I'd have got at Oxford in 1 year if I'd have stayed there. Do you know what I mean? But
yeah,
again, it were all, excuse me, it were all about principles. So I signed a 2 year contract, came in, got injured first couple of days in pre-season training. So I ended up doing no pre-season, and obviously they're looking and think, "Oh yeah, we've got one here." Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Got fit just before season started. Didn't have a practice game, pre-season game. Straight into first game of season, and I think I played 52 games first year I was there. So straight away, I played virtually every game, and loved it with young lads. Billy and Mark Kearney were great. Training was good. I thoroughly enjoyed it, even though we sort of. I assume we finished mid-table as such, something like that.
yeah,
I don't recall, but it was still a good season because we blooded all them kids in. Your Liam Lawrence's, your Leroy Williamson, Craig Disley, Bobby Hassel, and they were good kids, and we was able to get them some first team football, and obviously, you know, we're going to second year, and they've got a bit of experience now, and they we got a few older heads in, and we ended up with a cracking team. Wayne Corden came in. We'd already got Chrissy Greenacre scoring goals. Shane Bradley came in, didn't he? Scored a few. I don't think he was as well liked, but he did. He did all right for us, and obviously ended that season, with promotion. Nice FA Cup run as well. Lost at Leicester. But it was still a great experience for boys. I remember us having Southampton in League Cup as well. So yeah, some great games, some great performances by young uns who eventually went on and to bigger and better things.
yeah. I mean, the good thing about it as well, the players that you mentioned there, among others, I think another thing, it must have been good for you as well because a lot of them was around the area, weren't there, as well. So that must have been a big thing in itself. So when you was with these young players that you mentioned, then you could
Yeah.
see how much potential that they had.
Yeah, you could see it. They just needed that experience and to be led in the right direction. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And that's what I was bought in for.
yeah,
And proof is in pudding because in 2 years they're all sort of fully fledged and winning and winning promotion. So as far as I'm concerned, I did my job.
yeah. It must be crazy because I think it was 20 years last week, and they must
I
it must
know.
have flown by for you. It must look like.
Yeah. Well, we were supposed to have got together for a reunion, and if it weren't for them being in promotion uh, playoffs, we would have had a game to celebrate. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was all set up. I've been warming up for the last 3 months.
Brilliant stuff. Well, hopefully we'll have something else to celebrate at the end of the season, so you could perhaps do it then. If
Fingers crossed, mate. Fingers crossed. We've put it on hold, so hopefully we'll still get that game in. We'll see.
definitely. What? So like you getting all the players from that time then just to get together to a game? Then you say.
Yeah, that was a plan. Yeah, that Andy White was sort of leading it, and I know he'd sorted the pitch out and everything. But yeah, that was the plan to get together. For a 20th year anniversary.
Brilliant stuff. Obviously, promotion that season, obviously for you, the second spell at Mansfield. Then, what were some of the best matches that you played in that season?
Oh Jesus! I'm at that age now, mate. I've got to be honest with you. For me, I enjoyed playing against Oxford because of what had happened in the past. I still
Yeah,
loved Oxford. Don't get me wrong. Hated the chairman for shitting on me, but apart from that,
yeah,
that was nice. And to be honest, as much as it was great to get promotion. It's also nice to play the big games when the FA Cup games at Leicester.
yeah.
Southampton home and away, and again, because the kids nowadays and what have you, playing in reserves now, they don't play on first team pitches, and it's
No,
such a shame because it's a great grounding. At 16, I'm playing at Derby County and
yeah.
Huddersfield, and it's just a different level, mate.
Yeah, it is, mate. It must be strange watching football now because it's changed so much on it over the years. Like it must seem alien to you at times.
Yeah, well, I think the changes started to come towards the end of my career. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It was like, I mean, you look now, and I'm not saying it was better in our day, or do you know what I mean?
yeah,
But I know some of the stuff, in this day and age, it's I don't think it would have suited me. But but that doesn't take away the fact that we played good football, and do you know what I mean? Uh,
yeah,
I don't think that the footballers in this day and age, they talk about different levels of fitness and all that, but you still got to be fit in our day. Yes, you might have had a pint or two more in pub and what have you, and you
mm,
had a bit more, crappy food maybe that you didn't realise. But at the
yeah,
same time, it didn't do me any harm. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Well, as I say, you average 46 games a year, you must be doing something right.
No, yeah, that's
You know
it.
what
I
I mean,
mean,
so yeah, right. I just think it's easy to sort of say that they're better now, but it's a totally different game. Do you know what I mean? But our levels of fitness. First time round, we used to go out on a Tuesday night in Mansfield, Valentino's, I think it was at that point, and we used to be in on Wednesday morning. We'd be up Arlo Wood, and he'd run his knackers off us. But okay, do you know what I mean?
yeah,
We were all there, some spewing up because they'd had too much night before, but that was part and parcel, and we got promoted on that.
yeah.
You know what
I
I mean?
think
Who's to say it's wrong?
it's like I think the good thing about it is it's team bonded, isn't it? That
Of
stuff.
course it is, mate. That's a
You know what I mean?
yeah. You've got to, and even that, it's all part of it. We at Oxford, when I was at Oxford, we used to call them. We'd go on an away game, and I know people think it's a cliche, but we actually did have a couple of kids on bus, and we did stop off in a village on our way home from away games, and we
Yeah,
had a couple of pints while the kids got the fish and chips, and we talked football, and anything that had gone wrong that day, we'd talk through it all before we'd even got back on bus to eat his fish and chips. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And again, we had a great team morale at Oxford, just like we did at Mansfield. I mean, great. It's funny because I talked to Alan Tankard a couple of weeks ago, and I'm still in touch with Pilks, and they getting together. Funnily enough, in Manchester soon. There's 4 or 5 of them catching it, just for a catch up, and
yeah,
that's what happens. Do you know what I mean? They're still great mates now. From 20 years ago when they played together. It's
yeah.
brilliant. Ings is going to be there. I speak to Ali Asher now and again. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
Yeah, it's great, and social media now has made it so
Oh,
much easier for us. As much as social media can be hard as well to handle and what have you, and some of the crap that's put out there.
yeah.
It's also been good in the respect that we can still sort of keep keep track of each other now. Do you know what I mean? It's really nice.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and it's just like you say, it's just easier for everyone.
Yeah,
Obviously, that promotion winning season, obviously
yeah,
Billy Dean had left, obviously, and Stuart Watkins obviously came. What was
he
it
did.
like when Stuart came? Then what was it like when he took charge?
To be honest, it was after the Leicester game. Funnily enough, we went to after the Leicester game. We went more or less. Bill told us then that he were leaving, and it was like a bit of a shock,
Yeah.
a massive shock, really. And we went to Portugal. I can't remember how many days for. So we went from playing Leicester to losing manager to going to Portugal all in a weekend, you know.
Yeah.
And we had a Stuart was obviously there, and Butch, and it was one of those where again it was sort of team building, but as much for us to get used to Stuart. Do you know what I mean? And he were brilliant. Can't fault him. He obviously we got promoted, so you
Yeah.
know we weren't already promoted. He carried on and got us promoted. You know,
Yeah.
so fair play to him. The only thing I would say, and this is not having a go or anything, it's a shame because perhaps if we hadn't got promoted, it would have given him a better chance when he, for the following season when he was having a whole season at it, possibly,
Yeah.
because getting promoted meant that we were going to be, well, I say they were going to be playing at a higher standard of football.
Yeah.
We wouldn't, the money wouldn't have been there for him to buy players that's going to keep him in that league. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or give him a chance in that league, I should say. And yes, time told, didn't it? Because he didn't last that long the following season. But he was a good coach, and yeah, take my hat off to him. He fair play to him. To step up, get us promotion, and I do feel sorry for him because I think the way it happened, it was a shame because he didn't get a proper go the following
Yeah.
year. You know what I mean? I just think it was a bit much getting promoted, not having a lot of money, and being a new manager and being put in that situation.
Yeah.
He was
Absolutely.
still the right man for the job at the time.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Um, Obviously, he knew that was happening though, Mark, and uh, my circumstances were that I signed that 2-year contract when I first arrived. I
Yeah.
had such a good season that first year that a couple of clubs had sort of knocked on door, sort of thing. But again, I didn't want to leave Mansfield. I was at 34, I think
Yeah.
then 33, 34. And I went into chairman. I says, look, I think I got. I'm not showing off when I say this, but I swept the player at season boards. You know what I mean? I got the
Yeah.
chat, I got the players, I got the managers, I got everything except young player, which I was disappointed with. But yeah, so I'd had such a great season that I, I signed a year's extension on my contract. Again, I spoke to chairman. I didn't ask for any more money. It was just like, well, I'll just give me another year on what I'm on, and I'm happy to stay. You know what I mean? Because it's always been about football for me, mate. As much as we all have to pay as mortgages and that. I've never been greedy. I've never been a top earner anywhere. Do you know what I mean? Because it's all about playing football. But yeah, so I signed that extra year, and it was a shame from Mansfield's point of view in a way because Stuart decided that I'd be putting him under pressure by being at the club. Being a Shirebrook lad, being a local lad, being captain,
Yeah.
just getting a captain as to promotion. I think he felt that me being at club would put him under pressure to keep his job if things didn't go well.
Yeah.
And so he's pulled me at end of season and said, look, Les, he says, this is how it is. And that's how he felt. And I said, that's fair enough. And he said, I'd be happy for you to leave. Well, he more or less said, I'd like you to leave, I think.
Yeah.
I end up next season for pre-season training. He says, have you found anywhere? I said, no. I said, but if I'm being honest, I ain't looked. And he wasn't. He could have been nasty with me and put me in kids and all this, that, and the other, but he didn't.
Yeah.
And I did full pre-season, and then it comes to first game, as in pre-season matches, and he was playing me, and I said, no, I don't want to play. I said, because you want rid of me, and there's no point playing me because I'll be taking somebody's position that you might need. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that sort of that was the final straw, really. We never fell out or anything like that. He was still great, and I still trained as hard as I could, and supported him as much as I could. But I weren't prepared to play because, again, if I'd have got injured or anything, and I knew he didn't want me to play, so I ain't playing. Do you know what I mean? And they sort of paid off my contract up, so they paid me to leave, basically, which it wasn't my fault. Do you know what I mean? And they saved themselves 30 grand by doing that. Do you know what I mean? And then next couple of days, I had a couple of non-leagues. I had Swansea and somebody else came in, and I was at the age where I didn't really want to move to Wales and all that. Do you know what I mean? So I just thought it's time to sort of perhaps think about going non-league and what you're going to do after career ends. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I do regret it a little bit because I could have definitely played another 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Oxford thought at 33 that I'd had it, and I played 92 games in 2 years at Manchester. You know what I mean? So I was far from past it, mate. And again, still a fit lad. It was a shame really how it ended, but that's football for you, mate, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's like in any job, though, isn't it? Sometimes you get just like an explanation, like someone saying that they just don't want you, but say it in the nicest possible way, basically.
Yeah. And again, I've never held out anything against Stuart. I understood what he was saying, and to be fair, he was probably right in the end. Had I been there, he might have got sacked a month before. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was never. I've never. It's not anything that I've ever wanted management, because I think to get a job, you've got shit on people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Somebody's got to get sacked for you to get a job, and so it's one of them where it's never been me that, and as again, principle of it, I wouldn't want to be telling kids that they're not good enough to play football for the I wouldn't want any of that. It was funny because it was John Duncan was Chesterfield manager when I was there as a kid, and he told me, obviously, we'd like to keep you because we ain't sure whether you're going to be good enough. And I said, well, you've seen me for a year. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he says, yeah. He says, do you know what I mean? And obviously he let me go. And he tried to sign me on loan year after from Mansfield. I was playing on in Saturday morning for Resis, and I think it was at Clipston. And I was playing in Resis, and he was there. And he said hello, and Greavesy pulled me after. He says he's asked about taking you back on loan. I said no fucking chance. We were bad enough being a spy right for a year. No mind anymore.
I was going to ask you that. It's amazing I did it for a year. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. Again, mate, it was all about wanting to be a footballer.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah. Well, you've got to get in your foot in the door, as they say, don't you? So
Well, that's it, mate. Yeah, and it meant, to be fair, that I started my career and ended it at my hometown club, which I'm really pleased about and proud of, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, just to play at the local derbies must have been like amazing for you. I mean, obviously as a fan, you just dream of that. But what was it like to be playing at the local derbies for you?
It was fantastic. You know what I mean? I mean, the Notts County Cup. Playing at Forest and Notts County's grounds, and them coming to play at Field Mill. It was great, mate, and great experience. Both when I was a young lad, it was great experience. You're talking about European Cup winners, and I'm playing against them. Do you know what I mean? It was a fantastic experience as a young lad, and again, it was just as good when I came back, because I was bringing the young kids through, doing exactly what I'd done, 15 years earlier.
Hmm.
Yeah.
What was the most craziest story at Mansfield like? So like the most daftest moment that you had as a player, like.
Are we talking as a player, or are we on about nights out or whatever? I've got to be honest with you, I was a bit of a joker, you know what I mean? And I think that's that. That we're driving down. We've been away and drove somewhere for training. We're on his way back, and we stopped at lights, and a can't remember who it was. Was it Chris Greenacre? They were in front of me at light, so I've just beeped on and acted as if I was talking to him through a window. So he's giving it all this what. So I've got out the car, gone in, took his keys out, thrown them in Asda car park. Just stuff like that. It was just silly stuff, really, mate. But again, great for team bonding. They come back, had a laugh about it, and he's crying because he can't find his keys, and you know what I mean. It all part and parcel of it. All part and parcel.
I think the game kind of lacks that now because obviously, like as we've spoken about, football has changed so much. And you probably don't get as much now in football, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know what goes off now, do we? Well, I don't. Do you know what I mean? It'd be interesting to sort of to be put in that situation, just a fly on wall, see if it still does go on. Because it's funny, you mentioned testimonial earlier. Obviously, after what had happened when I left to go to Mansfield, I thought that had gone, and it was we got promoted in '96 when I was at Oxford, and they had a 20-year anniversary then in 2016, and somebody come to me and said, "Why didn't you have a testimonial?" I said, "Well, I ended up leaving." And next day, they've come and said, "We'd like to offer you a testimonial." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And that's how it all came. And I ended up having my testimonial. I think I was 50, 51 when I had my testimonial. I mean, that's sort of unheard of. Do you know what I mean? But wow, It was great to be back in it. Even at that age, just to spend a year of being in football again. We had a get together for golf. We had a golf tournament. We had a guest speakers evening and all that. Do you know what I mean? And then it culminated in us having a game against Liverpool, because that was the only one of the two teams I didn't get to play against. So we played against Liverpool. We beat them 1-0. I thought I'd mention that. Not competitive anymore, but yeah, we beat them. And to be involved in football again was absolutely brilliant for a year. Do you know what I mean? I'm smiling just thinking about it. But when the lads get together, it's like we've never been apart.
Yeah.
So all the banter was still there, and do you know what I mean? And it's just people won't get what it's like when a group of lads that ain't seen each other for sort of 10 years all get together again. It's like there ain't been a gap.
Yeah.
Everybody's still slaughtering, saying the same shit that they were saying 10 years previously. Do you know what I mean? So it was really good, and that's what I think. And I know, again, it's a cliche. That's what they say. That it's what you miss, that banter dressing room. But because I'm with a load of teachers now, and it's a waste of time. Do you know what I mean? I'm wasted, mate. There's so much more fun still left in me, but it's wasted.
Well, it's funny because I was talking to Martin Pemberton a couple of weeks ago, and and it was funny because I asked him, obviously, when I asked you earlier about what it was like when Stuart took over, and he just said essentially just carry on doing what you're doing, and the dressing room, it was great. He said, and it just amazes him looking back on that time. So it was the same for you when you look back on it. It's just amazing.
Yeah. It was, and it's funny because obviously, Pembo. We've had a few messages on Facebook and that, and even that, I didn't know what he'd been through after football. You know what I mean? Because a lot of footballers suffer, don't they, afterwards? And to see Harris come back from suffering to what he's doing now, it's and helping others, make sure that we don't go down the road that he went down. It's really commendable for him.
Well, yeah, and it's just like, football is no different. Everyone's human, aren't they? And it just shows you that, doesn't it?
I think even more so because when, it's like, dying and starting again, isn't it? I mean, because to be a footballer for 20 years and then all of a sudden it's gone.
Yeah.
And you could say that about any job, but specifically football, because of the way football is. And as you say, the camaraderie and the banter and everything else, there's nothing that can take its place.
No.
There's absolutely nothing. And that's what I say to them now, keep going as long as you can. Do you know what I mean? I'm still playing with kids at school and, I'm not going to stop. I'm still going for a 5 mile run on a Saturday morning with dog, because while I can, I need to do it. I can't walk next day, but at least I did it. Do you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
body is going to go at some point altogether when you can't do it, and there's no turning back then. So make them, you've got to make most of it, mate.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you say that, because every player I've interviewed have always had the same football. It's such a short career. It's so,
Yeah,
it really is.
it is, mate. Yeah, and most of us, struggle to cope when we finish, purely meant, with the mental side of things, and that's, I've got nothing. At 33, I've got nothing to look at forward to. As in job wise, do you know what I mean? And it was
Yeah.
only then that I took my football qualifications, got my UEFA B license, and you know what I mean, so that I could, I'd at least got something, even though it weren't really what I wanted to do. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? I knew then I'd always have a job, whether it, somewhere in the world, because I could coach football. But it weren't really what I wanted. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just something just to be involved in football. That was just mainly what one of the reasons why I think you did it then.
Yeah, it was, but it was because I wanted to know what else to do. If I'm being honest with you, mate. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I was lucky because that's what got me into teaching.
Mm. Yeah, I would say obviously that's what you're doing now. How did football get you into that then?
Well, as I just said, it was one of those where I'd got no qualifications. When I was at school, I was going to be a footballer, so I didn't need any.
Mm.
When the GCSEs were on O levels when I was a kid, when that was coming on when I was 16, I went to France playing football instead, taking me O levels, and so I came away from school with nothing. I was in the top classes and that, so I was bright enough, but I'd got no interest. All I wanted to do was play football,
Yeah.
and that's where I was going to be. And you know what I mean. But in them days, though, mate, I'd have ended up at Pitt anyway, so
Yeah.
I didn't really need qualifications, because that's where I would have ended up, like my brothers and my dad. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
rest of the Cybro. But yes, I ended up playing football, so I missed all that. And then come end of career, I thought I'd better do something, so I got my football qualifications, and because when I left Mansfield, I was living in Daventry at the time, which is in between Banbury, where Oxford way, and Mansfield, because I was travelling up to Mansfield ending my career, and because my lad was at Coventry City on Coventry City's books,
Mm.
so we moved to Daventry so I could travel to Mansfield and he could travel to Coventry,
Mm.
uh, and yeah, it was one of those. I'd signed for Hensford non-league, and I was playing training on a Tuesday, playing on a Saturday. So I'd got all this spare time, so I played golf every day. And then at night, I thought I'll go to local school, offered to put some coaching on, for the local kids at Liam's school, my lad. And I went in, and headmaster says, "Hello, Les." I says, "Oh yeah," and didn't know him from Adam. Do you know what I mean? He said, "No," he says, "My name's blah blah. I'm an Oxford United season ticket holder." I says, "Oh right." So straight away, it was one of those where I said, "Oh, I just thought I'd put some sessions on for kids, because I don't need to get a job, and I'd like to give a bit back, because I've always been that way. You know what I mean? I've always done anything anybody's asked. I've always been there, because I
Yeah.
know how fortunate I was as a football, to be a footballer."
Yeah.
And he says, he says, "I don't know about that." He says, "We're a couple of PE teachers short. Do you fancy coming in and doing football?" I said, "No, I play golfing day, because I'm playing golf every day." But then he says, "Oh, okay." So he let me at AstroTurf to put a few sessions on, and so I did that. And then it sort of, the novelty of playing golf every day wore off, because there was nobody else. They were all at work, all my mates. Do you know what I mean? So he asked me again, and I said, "Yeah." And I'm sort of 19 years at it now, and yeah. So yeah, so I did that at my lad's school, and then eventually, so I went in and started doing football there, and then summer season came round, so football had finished, and I thought they'd just sort of say thanks for doing football, off you go type thing. But the
Yeah.
kids got a petition up to keep me, so they sent me on a course. It was only a 1 day course to teach the summer sports. athletics and that. And
Yeah.
as a sportsman, you can play everything anyway. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying to highest standard, but
Yeah.
you can play everything, can't you?
Yeah.
So yeah, I ended up staying. I was there for about 15 months, and then I went to my daughter was working at a special needs school, kids with autism, and she was working on the care side. She said, "Dad, will you come up and do a session for us?" So I did. I went up and did a session for them, and it was different. And the headmaster said, "Look, because it was a school as well as a residential care place, you know." And he
Yeah.
says, "Look, with our PE teachers off with stress, will you come and, you know, do a few shifts for us?" I says, "Yeah, no problem." So I went there, and the PE teacher never came back.
Oh,
I realised why, though, how stressful it is. And yeah, I've been there 17 years now, teaching kids with autism. They're all able-bodied, so you know, when I first went there, they'd never won a game of football, and we got them playing offsides and everything, mate. We beat college under 23s and all sorts we were beating. But with autism, it's one of those where it all sort of swings and roundabouts. One year you might have 2 or 3 that like it. Next year you might have 12. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
Yeah, so I've progressed. I've still got no qualifications, but I've progressed. You know, I was assistant head of education last year.
Wow.
Yeah, so I've progressed up the ladder, and you know, that was with no head, by the way. We got 3 assistants and no head. So we basically ran school, 3 of us last year. I've stepped down a little bit this year. I'm just head of Key Stage 5, transitions, cover manager, because you have to do a bit of everything, mate. So
Right,
I've
okay.
gone from sort of working a couple of hours a day to getting a couple of hours off a day now. I've got the cover for tomorrow when we finish this, to be honest with you, mate. I got home about 6:15, and then I'll be back on it in a bit, doing the cover for staff cover, ready for tomorrow. But I love it, and again, as I said, you know, it's 110% in anything I do, and you know, my paperwork when I first started there, yes, I haven't, you know, I went to qualified teacher, but my paperwork was as good as anybody's. Do you know what I mean? My
Yeah.
lessons, the preparation was as good as anybody's, and you know, I'm not being big-headed when I say that, but that's how I work. You know, if I want something, you know, I give it 110%.
Well, yeah, just the last couple of questions. I don't want to keep you too much longer because I know you've
That's
got.
all right, mate. No, I
Right.
didn't mean it like that. You carry on.
No, but
I've enjoyed it, Mark.
no, I think it's one of them as well. Though, if you're not like got that attitude where you want to do something, what's the point? You know what I mean?
I agree, mate. I agree. Same with everything. Golf. I've got a shit swing, but I get it round, you know. And I played a 5 for 25 years. You know what I mean? 5 handicap for 25 years, and it's what I do. If you saw me play, you'd laugh.
Well, I mean, it's good as well because you still got football involved there. So it's like you're still doing that now. So it's like
Yeah,
football's always staying with you. Like even though you've retired, you're still involved in it. So it's great.
yeah.
Helping
It
other
is, mate. It's been great, and the kids, you know, they're brilliant. I love them all. You know what I mean?
Yeah, brilliant stuff. We'll just ask a couple of questions here, Les.
Go on, then, mate.
Was it? I mean, obviously, this must be an obvious question, but what was it like to captain Mansfield?
So proud, you know, to be a Shirebrook lad, to captain my hometown club, a club I've loved and respected all my life. It was just a dream come true.
Yeah, amazing, Les. But yeah, thanks again for coming on to that, mate. I really do appreciate you taking the time.
Not a problem, kid.
Yeah, but yeah, best of luck with your obviously what you're doing now, and hopefully you know you get to win some more games and take charge full time with it.
Hey, we will do. Don't worry about that.
Brilliant
Mark,
stuff.
been an absolute pleasure, and best of luck. You know, the Stags obviously can't wait to watch the playoffs, and you know, hopefully, you know, we'll get a promotion, another promotion, mate.
Hope so, mate. If we get to the final, do you think you'll go to Wembley or you just watch it on TV?
No, I'll be watching on TV,
Right.
purely because I'll be playing golf on Saturday morning.
Nice one, mate.
Golf and football.
Just got to get your priorities right, though. You know what I mean?
Exactly, mate. But I will be fit. I will be there in spirit.
Yeah,
cheering them on.
brilliant stuff. Thanks again, Les. Appreciate this.
Welcome, mate. Cheers, buddy. Have a good evening.
All right, take care.